Hello, brothers and sisters. My name is Richard Koritz. I'm proud to be the co-host with my old friend, my old comrade, my union brother, Oliver Wendell Sweeney. O.W., great to be with you.
You got to tell them that you're co-host of You Got to Laugh to Keep from Crying.
Yeah.
Right?
That's correct. So you got in a little bit of it,
Yeah,
and I appreciate the help.
No problem.
Okay.
No problem.
And we're sponsored by
the North
Carolina
Triad
Jobs with Justice.
Where you can reach us at
336-272-2758. And now we're doing another show where it's you and me chewing over the situation. The situation is a little bit like, to me, because I'm an eater, kind of an eager eater, like chewing the fat. We're going to have to do a lot of chewing of the fat to get through to wherever the nutrition is in the fact that we're dealing with last night's victory for the person I consider a full-out fascist.
Convicted felon, yeah.
Convicted felon. That's another F word. He's a felonious fascist. But all fascists, I suppose, should be felons too. That's another discussion. Well. But the general election, a little bit on maybe the state as well, but particularly to focus on the campaigns of the two leading presidential candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald, the fascist Trump. So since I did that grand opening, I'm worn out now.
Okay.
So I'd like you to start with a few thoughts of yours about the election.
Well, my main thing with the election is I kind of agree with the people when they say Donald Trump was good with the economy and all that stuff like that. But my main problem with Donald Trump is the way people come out under his leadership. I mean, they racist and all this stuff like that. Is all this commotion coming behind him where he's not presenting a slate of unity among all the people. He's more or less a divider instead of someone to bring this country together. And with his fascist attitude, which way direction this country going? Is we going to have another election in 4 years, or is he going to continue to maintain the president, or well, I shouldn't say president, or the tyrant that he want to be, that he's never wrong, he never did anything wrong. And when you come across somebody like that, you have to wonder, what are they going to do? They feel that the Supreme Court has given him extraordinary power by saying that he's done things under
the presidency, an official act.
But I always ask, what was official about that rally he had in January 6th?
Yeah.
So I mean, so people have to understand.
That was officially an act of
rebellion, in my eyes.
Rebellion, revolt, the absolute most illegal type of act
from a president,
from a sitting president, and the Supreme Court judges, not in their infinite wisdom, but in their infinite greed to get more favors done for them by the billionaires that prop them up.
Yes,
ruled that gave him the immunity from most kinds of criminal prosecution.
I don't see where they gave him immunity because, like I said, I don't see what was in his official president's duty, what he did January 6th. I see nothing alive in the duties of the president that allowed him to call a rally to send people to the Capitol.
And as he said in the email, rallying the thugs to come, it will be wild.
Yeah.
Those were his words, So it's, I have strong feelings about the fact that I really believe that this 2024 election was a criminal act on behalf of Trump, and in particular, his own criminal acts to put fear into the hearts and minds of the voters, into the hearts and minds of the people running the elections in all the different cities, towns, and states in the country. And there was a I had a letter to the editor in today's News and Record, hallelujah.
Yeah.
And the last sentence in that letter was something to the effect that the media, whether it's print media, TV media, radio, and so forth, podcasts and all, that they were gutless. I think that was the term that I used. The media were gutless in that they were afraid to take on Trump, the thug, the billionaire bully. And you know, I like another B word to go with.
Were they afraid, or was it in their best interest?
Well, let me put it this way. One of the other two, all three letters, I think, in the paper today were quite good. You know, these are just letters, so they don't get read the same way articles do, features and so on and so forth. All three, I thought, were excellent. But the one person, her first name, I think it's a she, named Kim, made a point about self-censorship, meaning when people, without even being compelled directly to do something against their will, that they censor themselves. And in many cases, so this fits in with what you're saying, O.W., about, you know, for their job's sake and all of that, they anticipated that their bosses, let's say at a newspaper, didn't want that content in the paper, and therefore they didn't write it, even though they knew it to be the truth. So that would be self-censorship, and I think that was the term that was used by that letter writer. It was a very good term. And I had friends from the Philippines at the time of the 9/11 situation, when George W. Bush, you know, triggered the war of terror. He called it the war on terror, but in reality it was a war of terror.
Yeah.
And a number of people that were friends of mine were Filipino immigrants at that time. And you know how the immigrant population at that point was really being targeted, you know, and Muslims especially.
Well, nothing has changed.
Yeah. Well, just the intensity sometimes is higher and sometimes it's not as high. And then it was a crisis. But so a lot of those Filipino people surprised me by having stickers like on their doors and saying something like, you know, America's great, or whatever the hell it was. But what they were really saying was, please don't hurt me. And so that was quite a startling discovery. You know, it wasn't just one or two. It was, please don't hurt me. And I think self-censorship that we're talking about. So you had a narrative, and I'm almost done. I'm sorry to go on so long, but you had a narrative, and my letter to the editor was in support of this pretty serious and good, decent writer from the Washington Post named Robinson. And he pointed out, he said it's gotten to the breaking point, the double standard between how Donald Trump is treated by the media and how Kamala Harris is treated by the media. And so he pointed to a few things, like Trump in the previous week or so had talked a lot about mass deportation of millions of immigrant, particularly Latino families in this country. and something that would cost like trillions, in the trillions of dollars for the taxpayers if it really is carried out. And never mind the hardship not only on the immigrants, but the hardship on the rest of the population in the United States, the chaos that it would cause. That, on the one hand, and then you had the commentary by two four-star generals who had been as close to Trump as anybody in the Trump administration, and they were both saying that Trump is a hardcore fascist, and yet there was nothing in the article that this writer for the News and Record, also on the front page, was covering Trump's last visit to Greensboro, which was just a few days before the election, a day or two before the election. Meanwhile, as Robinson said, that Kamala Harris had to be perfect, that she was scrutinized so closely, every bit of what she was, and some people would say, well, she didn't tell enough about her plan. And what was Trump's plan that he was sharing other than mass deportations of immigrants and violence against his political
those who
his political opponents, right? So I thought that was a great article. That's what inspired my letter, was to support him and in that initiative. But it came at the end of the 2-year campaign, and all of this stuff builds up. So in the end, somehow you had the mysterious appearance of the guy from Tesla. Elon Musk.
Yes.
Thank our other two members of our team for that.
See, a lot of people don't realize that Elon Musk is not putting money out there without looking for a return on his money.
Wait a minute. You mean he didn't get to be a billionaire by being charitable to everyone else?
Definitely not.
Okay. And now he's supposedly the richest man in the world.
On the planet.
Right. But I learned from Charles Dickens and A Christmas Carol that the kind of riches that Elon Musk is not something that I would ever want to be. Because that's what a poor spirit. That individual, it's hard for me to call him that human being, but that individual has what a poor spirit.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and he's jumped right, literally, he jumped right in the middle of Trump's last number of rallies.
Yeah.
So we know he was not only central to the campaign, but he was right in the damn center of it.
And putting money out.
Big time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big
I think
time.
they say he put out over $130 million to the Trump campaign.
Yeah.
So, do people think business people put money out without looking for a return? I mean, that's one thing I look at local governments. They want to give people a tax breaks to come to their town or city or county,
right?
To
incentives, company incentives or something, corporate incentives,
a corporate bribe or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
but they don't seem to want to find out what are they going to get from their investment. Right. They get these people here, they don't pay everybody a decent wage. They tell you the average job going to be $43,000 a year. Yeah. Okay, that's the average. I mean, you can have two people
at the top
making millions.
Right, and the average can come out to $40,000.
Yeah, $43,000. But yet the people on the bottom, you can be paying thousands, tens of thousands of them, minimum wage.
Right.
But the average comes up like this. What is the investment that we get when we get those people those tax breaks, if they're not paying those people on the bottom enough money so they can go out here and buy houses and cars to put that tax money back into the our economy?
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, it just seems that it always in this capitalistic society that it's going to be for the rich by the rich. Okay, because I still want to know, after the Supreme Court rule that companies are people, how come they ain't paying no income taxes?
Yeah.
I mean, which is a legitimate cry, because you pay income tax, ain't you?
Yes.
And you retired.
And you are too. Yeah.
And you retired.
True. And But I'm not retired from fighting for justice.
Oh, well, I'm talking about
just the same with you.
Yeah.
I'm just putting a plug in for fighting for justice.
Yes.
If they want to look as young as you and I do when they get to be our age, then they got to keep fighting for justice.
Always, always.
Yeah.
And you're not going to find it from people like Trump, because all he cares about is him.
Right.
And I can't see from what they put out on the news media about how Donald Trump talked. Now, when he got shot, they would say it was because of the rhetoric of the Democrats. But yet he was up there talking about putting 9 guns on Liz Cheney.
In her face.
Yeah, in her face.
Yeah.
And some people say, well, he was talking about war. Why was he using Liz Cheney, period?
Right.
Why couldn't he say somebody?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because basically, I think that fits in with what I've tried to say here today about the intimidation, the putting the people, the voters, the election people involved with responsibility for conducting the elections, the politicians, especially Trump's political opponents,
Yeah.
and the whole society, and even the polls. You think that after listening to Trump's threats on people like Liz Cheney, threats on Kamala Harris, threats on Nancy Pelosi, you notice a lot of them are women. That billionaire bully, B-man. So the fact is, who's going to tell that? Yeah, I'm going to vote for the other person, not for Trump. When they get a poll, but yet the whole thing ends up becoming about the polls every day, and maybe every day it was only every day, maybe the last number of weeks, but it was almost every day through the whole 2 years, and no content, no policy. Trump didn't have to say anything about policy, because the way the media again were presenting it was like it was a horse race. And therefore, the people had no stake in it unless they had bet on one of the horses.
It's several questions that they asked that I'm leery of. One of the questions, are you better off today than you was 4 years ago?
Right.
All right? Now, if you say no, or if you say yes, or if you say I'm the same, what's the meaning of the question, are you better off than you are 4 years ago? Most of the people, which I would assume, say, no, I'm not better off than I was 4 years ago.
Right.
But what are your conditions and why you're not better off than you was 4 years ago? Yeah. Was it the fault of the government, or was it the fault of your action on your livelihood? And then one of them I thought was fair, was very unfair when they asked Kamala Harris, what would you have done differently than Biden? I thought that question was very unfair for the simple reason is, as the Vice President of the United States, you're there to support the President of the United States, not to be his opposition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there's a lot of, that's just another example of the kind of vetting process that they put her through, and Trump got away with. Well, I believe he got away with murder. If we get a chance to respond to people on that issue, I think I can show that that's the case during his time as president. But there is something else I'd like to share, which I raised with you, that I'd like to share it with our viewers before we go. And it's easy for you and me, especially people like you and me, and you and me in particular, I would say, to run over, as our excellent videographer, John Johnson, points out at times, run over our time. So if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
And I think our viewers know by now that I'm from Jewish background. That means all 4 of my grandparents were Jewish.
Yeah.
4 out of 4 ain't bad, especially if you're in baseball. But I mean, even in terms of your genetics, yeah, exactly.
Family history.
Yeah, family history, right. So this is a poem that was written not by a Jewish person, but by a Protestant minister in 1944. And it's a very famous poem. It's the most famous poem, at least in the West, and maybe overall. It was written by a German Protestant minister when he was in a death camp of the Nazis, one of the most famous ones called Dachau.
Yeah.
And it was in 1944, and it really talks about his experience. But I want, maybe even especially, MAGA supporters of Trump, or people that voted for Trump in particular, to ponder. But even those of us that did not vote for Trump, because we're going to have some bitter struggles ahead of us to try to keep our families in a dignified, healthy position in this society. So it's called, O.W., When They Came. When they came for the communists, I said nothing because I was not a communist. When they came for the socialists, I said nothing because I was not a socialist. When they came for the trade unionists, like you and me, I said nothing because I was not a trade unionist. When they came for the Jews, I said nothing because I was not a Jew. When they came for the Catholics, I was a Protestant. I said nothing. Now they have come for me, and there is no one left to speak up for me. And I hope that our viewers will ponder those thoughts that came from a man at the end of a bitter experience where he had acted like a spectator in his native country of Germany,
yes,
as Germany went fascist. So that's it on that issue.
What that poem kind of put into mind for me is, are we going to watch Trump political opponents? Are they going to start having certain accidents and stuff like this here? Is the accident going to be investigated to find out why this person might have got killed or got hurt or stuff like this here? Because he had thrown out the fact that he was going to go after his opponents.
Right.
Rather than talk about bringing the country together,
and uplifting people, uplifting the people.
About tearing it down.
Right.
And yet people want to put their pocketbooks above the prosperity of this nation.
And the spirit of this nation,
yes.
Right? And just to add to what you're saying, I think it's important for our viewers to realize that General Mark Milley, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, picked by Donald Trump,
yes,
to be the head of the whole military in this country, he is now afraid, and he's expressed it, he's afraid that he is going to be brought back into the military, put in a court-martial, and executed by Trump. That's somebody who worked closely with Trump month after month for at least a few years at the very top
yes,
of this country's state. And he said, and I think I'm quoting exactly accurately, that General Milley said, he, Trump, is the most dangerous person in this country. I think that's an exact quote. I'm going to repeat it if it's okay with you.
yeah,
That General Milley said that he, Trump, is the most dangerous person in this country. So
but yet, even with that warning, mm-hmm, people refuse to understand what is supposed to be, what I consider the value of this country is for everybody to prosper, which is also what I call the illusion of the United States of America.
The American dream.
Yes, the American dream.
Yeah, and it's further and further away from the so-called American reality.
That's right.
Or the U.S. reality.
And basically, the rules are written to stop people from becoming rich. It seems like that only the rich is supposed to continue to get rich, but everybody can't become rich. Very few slip through the cracks, and they like it that way.
Right.
So I don't know what else to say, but
well,
we're getting near to the end of the show. So
yeah,
I guess we might as well close it up. If you got any closing statement you want to make.
Just that, your old union president, Mo Biller, he would always end his speeches with "the struggle continues."
Yes.
And you and I end our show with, "In our unity lies our strength."